Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthcare Inspired Podcast. Jennifer McNamara here. We are very excited about our episode today on compliance, and we have a very special guest. First, though, I'm going to invite to the stage my co-host, Maya Turner. Welcome to the stage, Maya.
Hello.
Oh, it's a Thursday, but it's a great Thursday. Guess what? We have the amazing Christine Hall on the show today. Hello, Christine.
Hi, my friends. It is so good to be on the show with you today. Maya, Jennifer.
I know.
Oh my gosh. I haven't seen you in months.
I know. It seems like forever.
It was April, right? At HealthCon.
I know.
But it was
a while ago.
It was. Oh, I just always look forward to the next conference.
I'm going through with Christine withdrawals. I need to see Christine.
Yes.
We do. We need to get together. We need to have some sort of a mid-year, consultants get together and hang out kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. I can't make it to I can't make it to the retreats, it seems like.
Well, I'm going to say I live in South Florida, so I pick me. We have beaches.
I agree. You have a great location.
Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like something that should be on the books for me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's pencil that in, or pen it in so we can't erase it. Now, right. I know I'll be seeing you, Christine, at the Healthcare Advocate Summit, and I am so excited to see you there in Vegas again. So that'll be super fun.
I have the pleasure this year of speaking on, and I'll just give you like the Cliff Note version. What happens when a payer denies a claim? I know from a patient's perspective, they always get so disheartened. And so we're going to talk a little bit about when the payer's wrong and we're right, and seeing if we can't get that claim pushed with the right information and the right procedure.
I love that. Well, I think we so underestimate that we feel that the payer's always right. But when the payer's wrong, there has to be someone who speaks for the patient to advocate, quote unquote, for it to be righted when it's wrong. So I love that.
It's been years since the Affordable Care Act passed and allowed, you and me the opportunity to appeal a payer's decision, but so many people don't know that information. So I think the best thing we can do is keep sharing that information and sharing with them the knowledge.
Yeah, and the patients get really tired of going back and forth about how they have been told the wrong things, and then they're shifted, and then it's rerouted, and you need to talk to this person, and they get tired and they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And then it goes on collections, and they can't report it on credit anymore, but still it just becomes a very merry-go-round process for the patient, and that just makes it a really terrible thing for the patient to experience.
It does. So we're going to
and the providers too. Yeah. Yes, we are. Through Miss Christine Hall. Now, I would say, I want to encourage people. People come to me all the time. They want to know if I still teach exam preparation, if I teach people to do better at their job. And I do my best. I really work more now with established coders and billers that are employed. But people like Christine Hall and Maya Turner, I have turned my clients to them because they do still work in that world where they're helping new coders and billers come on the scene. So if you are a biller or you want to go into billing and you're not quite sure if you want billing and coding, reach out to Maya Turner and Christine Hall, because these ladies, of course, among others, like Kimberly Jolivet Williams, who teaches the CPMA, as well as Christine Hall, you have your pick of people, consultants that can help you pass an exam and can help you pick the right path for you. So I know I get a lot of coders and billers that reach out to us. And so I want to make that clear who you can go to. And we have an advisory board, guys. Both Maya Turner and Christine Hall are members of the Healthcare Inspired Advisory Board. So you can go to our website at healthcareinspiredllc.com and go to About Us, find all the members of our advisory board. There is usually someone on our board that can help you with your specialty. So I kind of crafted it that way. Yeah.
I'm I think this is a great opportunity to talk about that. Our organization does still teach the exam prep, but we do it kind of like an exam prep on steroids.
I know
we
it's, oh my gosh.
we prepare our students for real world. So it's funny. We just had a class Tuesday night, and we were talking about AR and AR management. And we took it a step further in class. We pulled out denials. We worked the denials. We found out why. What could we do to prevent it? We wrote appeal letters together,
Oh,
successful ones. So rather than just telling you, here's the answer, let me show you the solution. And that's what
Absolutely.
sets us
exactly.
apart from maybe some of the other organizations, is that when you work with a smaller group, like Healthcare Inspired or like Turner Expert Consulting Services, you're going to get that extra information that maybe some of the larger organizations just
Absolutely.
can't customize. So
Or
it's
can
about
or
that.
does not have time to train. I think a lot of
Right.
times you're when you get in a larger organization, you're fresh off the bus, you still have the A behind your name or whatever. They throw you
Right.
to the
Yeah.
wolves and they expect for you to learn all of this stuff on hand, and it really isn't that simple. I remember having a conversation with a coder and they did not know how to read an explanation of benefits, to know what those codes
Oh,
mean, to
that
know
hurts
how
my
to.
heart.
I know.
Makes
And
me
it's like,
sad. Yeah.
but if you've never experienced real world like your organization does, and you're reading those explanation of benefits and you see the CO 45, the CO
Right.
18, you see those codes,
CO 50.
you have no
Oh.
exact and you have no idea what it means. I mean, CO stands for contractual obligation, but there are certain times when it's not, and it's processed the wrong way. So, in order to get it done, you have to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how to resolve when it's wrong. And when they send that, electronic remittance advice, that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. I
Right?
mean, it doesn't. And I mean, I
No.
remember, geez, Lord, I don't know, have nightmares, but when I used to get those 50, 30, or 50 or 100-page ERAs, they weren't ERAs then.
Oh.
They were just remittance
Too
Piece of
soon.
advice.
Too
paper.
soon, Maya. Too
Those,
soon. Too
I'm
soon.
sorry. I just had, a late lunch. I can't hear that right now. Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I was just talking to somebody the other day about a client that I have, and you still find those offices that are so stuck on paper and they still print all of those out. Like she still printed all of the Medicaid remit. And part of it was the EMR was the problem. The EMR didn't process them correctly for Medicare, so like that
right,
was a whole
right,
thing. But I feel so bad for these clinics, the offices, and they need training. They need to know how to do it efficiently, so they can get
right,
paid faster and more
right,
accurately.
and
right. And
and
I
on the
also,
job training is not as prevalent as it used to be, and that's
no,
because the practice has become a machine. In order to
yeah,
keep the practice going, in order to facilitate the needs of the patients, and especially with all of the increased requirements, HMOs and your MIPS reporting and your HEDIS reporting, and there's so much that's going on within a practice now, that it's very difficult to find that on the job training, because there's no time. And
It's
where do
true.
you get that? Right?
yeah.
That's so important.
And we
I
have
Got to
more
get it
remember.
consultants,
right.
right? Go ahead, Maya. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I remember when coders first started with an organization, when there was time that you went through an extensive training process. You went through the onboarding. You went through, the granularities associated with the E&M. They went through that. It was so
Mm-hmm.
meaningful. But now it's like nobody has time. Nobody wants to take the time, but everybody wants you to fix the problem, but they want you to figure
Ugh.
it out on your own. And it's like you wonder like how do some organizations survive, when you have the denials team, then you have the coding team, and everything is based on this work queue, and the work queue isn't, or the system isn't user friendly,
Oh yeah.
and you can't necessarily figure out who did what last, or if they put the right notes in, or if they put notes in
Or
at
any at
all.
all. Yeah, any at all, right? That was my biggest thing.
Well,
But
here's another thing
yeah.
I was
Oh,
going
I
to
love.
say. The EMRs themselves have become more advanced. However, the EMR companies, they do a lot of onboard training for the EMR, which has nothing to do with billing or coding. And I think that providers sometimes, right? Providers sometimes become so desensitized. Oh, the EMR company, they take care of everything. They'll train, they'll do, and then they're wondering, wait a minute, I got $1 million in AR. Oh, no, well, how did that happen? Right.
Right.
Listen, your people are only as good as the time that you're investing in them. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hire experienced people that are going to have all of the knowledge coming out the door every time you have a position open. Sometimes you're going to have to take some people that are newly trained in the industry, and you're going to have to invest additional resources into them.
And Maya and I, we talk about numbers all the time, like, because we work on projects together.
Yeah.
And the other day we were talking about crunching numbers for a client, and it was like I was going over the numbers, and I'm like, okay, they bring in this amount of money a year just on one of their clients, this is a management company, and then this much and this much for their other clinics they manage, and they can't afford to hire a consultant. It's like drop in the bucket to what they're making. And you can't afford not to bring us on for training. It's a drop in the bucket. The education cost for just a quarterly education is a drop in the bucket. It's like the cost of one surgery, possibly, maybe even less. And so it's like, you can afford it. I promise you.
As we talk about compliance, I think that word sometimes is not very user-friendly.
No, it's not.
And really what it is saying you need to bring in a consultant that can kind of review that financial component to see where are your deficiencies and provide you with solutions so that you can continue to move forward. In the audits that I've done this year, every single audit, I am finding services that the providers are documenting and they're providing, but they're not billing for them. And I tell them all the time, if I wasn't here, think about all the money that would be going out the door, and tell your friends that, because without bringing in a consultant, or I don't know if this happens with you guys, you get the phone call after the fact. Oh, I got a letter.
Can you fix this?
Right.
Yeah.
Can you? Right. And that's not the case there at that point. Once you got the letter, you're pretty much going to have to, it's going to hurt. We can't help you a whole lot at that point. Moving forward, right?
We'll be there to hold your hand and give you a hug. But
But what's interesting too is, for me, is when you have these startups, right? And they are only as good as what they know. So they bring in everybody new. They don't want to pay for anything to show reimbursement. So they're trying to go through this revenue flow, not really have any inside experience working with them. So they're going by, quote unquote, what they've been sold and thinking that they're going to do okay. And then they're missing the smoking sensation. They're missing, the prolonged services that they've never knew anything about. And so we come in and we're like, wait a minute, you spent 60 minutes on a patient and you did this, you did that, and this was all in the same day? Well, yeah. Okay, well, did you, what code is that? So you talked about, healthcare power of attorney, and you have it on file. Yeah. Did you bill for it? Well, there's a code for that. Excuse me for a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it just becomes really a rounding circle, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, ladies, this episode, this whole season is, of course, on the Connected Leader. We're talking about to our leaders this season. And, Christine and I had the privilege of speaking at the NAMUS conference last year on revenue integrity. So this episode is leading with integrity, the essential role of compliance in leadership. And it's all about compliance. The other day I had someone tell me, I don't work in compliance. But it's like, you know what? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Because you may not have the title of a compliance officer, or you might be on a compliance committee, but you are in compliance every time you open a chart.
Yeah.
Every
have
time
I ever
you
told you
click
my
that button.
have I ever told you my compliance story?
You may have, but I think there may be listeners and viewers that have not heard this story. So let's go. Let's go.
Well, I like to share with people my journey in compliance. And it once
Absolutely. Let's
started
do it.
when I was about 8 years old. I think that everybody's journey in compliance started about 8 years old as well. Did in your household, did they have a policy that you had to keep your room clean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did
Pretty
you have
much.
procedures? Like, did your mom or your dad or your grandma come in and say, okay, here's how we do it? Everything off the floor, you change the sheets, you know, you get your laundry in
Yeah.
the dirty laundry, you put your new laundry, like here's the shelves and certain things go here. Did they do that? They gave you the procedures,
Yes.
right?
Unless you were born after a certain year, unfortunately, not everyone can say that.
Well, even in my house today, you know, we still have those rules. But so we have policy, procedure, education, and if things changed, like if I got a new computer, or if I got a TV, or if I got a new bedroom set, you know, the rules changed, right? So maybe we updated the policy, and as I got older, of course, the policy updated.
Okay, the policy.
Right? There was education that happened when we updated the policy. Now you've got a PlayStation in your room, and you've got these are the responsibilities that go with it. There was monitoring and auditing. Now, sometimes that auditing was internally, like my mom or dad would come in, but sometimes they would bring an external auditor in, like grandma. Ooh, and grandma came in. Oh, right. You know what I'm saying, right? If grandma
Old
came
grandma.
in, there was always ways to improve and additional education that happened at that point. Now, sometimes there had to be investigations. Why is it that you can't get this done? Do we need to modify something? Do we need to bring in some assistance? What do we do to fix this problem? But when there was flat out non-compliance, there were consequences, right?
Absolutely.
So aren't those the 7 elements of an effective compliance program?
It is.
100.
And so haven't we all been participating in compliance since we were about 8 years old?
Yeah.
At least, if not earlier.
At least. And not to mention phones and smartphones and the controlling of the new technology.
Right? So
cybersecurity
is no different. I always tell people in the office, you have the power to be your own compliance officer. How do you know you're doing a good job? Because you haven't got fired? Boy, those are big risks.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You have coders auditing their own stuff these days. So like, it's just insane.
But based on what?
But you have to stay
connected. Are the procedures? Where are the guidelines, right?
Well, you're creating the code, the self-auditing coder is doing it as they go, but they don't have anything in writing to show how they're monitoring it.
When your compliance is deficient, fix it.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to fix it. The first step number 1, guys, is defining what compliance is. And we're talking about leaders. So let's talk about leadership. So if you're a leader in an organization, so say you're talking to an office manager or a director of a multi-physician clinic, you go in there and you ask where their compliance policy is. And hopefully they have them in a secure place and they know where they are. Or you might get them to tell you, like, I don't know what you're talking about, right?
Or they might say something like, hold on. Let me get the dust off this real quick before I give it to you.
Yeah. So it's really just, you know, it's the legal aspect, it's the ethical responsibilities, it's what do we do if we're non-compliant? What is compliant? What is not compliant? And then what do we do about it? So Christine, Cliff Note version, what is the importance of compliance as a leader? What is their responsibility as a leader?
Because as a leader, you are responsible to make sure everyone is doing it right, that everyone has the most up-to-date message. And it's not just telling people. Leaders have to be in the middle of it. Leaders have to say, let's look at this together And let's see if you are making those metrics. And if you are, fantastic. And if you're not, then let's get all of the tools that we have to empower you to do it correctly. I think that each and every one of us, inherently, we want to do things right. Nobody wants to do things wrong, but they do need those leaders there to reinforce it, to edify them. Either you are doing it well, or let's do it better. Let's incorporate some of these opportunities to make it better. And that's where leadership needs to be involved. They need to be boots on the ground, not the boss yelling down from their ivory tower.
No,
they need to be
you're in it. You're in it with them. You're in it with them. That's a leader. Now, I don't know, like we all have our beliefs, right, in life. And so I truly believe, though, that we were all created with the ability to know right from wrong. Some people unlearn it, or they grow up and they have experiences where they decide it's not for me. And so you have those experiences and you come into this environment where you have multiple different personalities and different ways of doing things. Somebody's idea of what's right and wrong is different than somebody else's because the way they were raised, the things that they experience in life. And I talk about this in my book under the leadership chapter, and really just understanding the people you work with, understanding what makes them tick, right? What makes them want to communicate, what makes them not want to communicate, right? So you have to understand your team too. The way you approach compliance may be different with different people. You may not have to be as firm on something because that person already gets it, but maybe they need to work on something else. And maybe this person.
But think about it. That again, I can take that scenario and bring it in the house.
Yep.
I have 5 adult children. They are all different people. There were some people in my house that at 8 years old, I threatened them. I had a child. He looked me in the face. He said, "Mama, I love you, and you're going to spank me, and I'm going to cry, but I'm not going to clean my room."
Love it.
I had another child who was the tattletale. Now, mind you, she did have the cleanest room in the house, but she was the tattletale. You know, so but our employees are the same way. You're going to have that staff member who, I'm here from 9 to 5. Yes, he's still alive, Maya. I let that child live, just in case that was your next question. But you're going to have those people in the office that they're there from 9 to 5. They're not going to be the strongest in the office. They might need extra attention on a regular basis. You're not going to like what I'm doing, and you're probably going to be mad. So you know this. Be on top of it. Other ones in the office, they're going to be those AAA. They're always on their game. Maybe they might need to be in a position where they can really let that shine. Maybe they need to be the ones part of that compliance committee when you identify those types of people.
Yes. And one of the things I do now is I do workflow management. So I did that with an office. They needed some assistance. So I walked in the office, and of course I met with everybody in the office, the business staff. And so each person walked in the office and met with me, and I asked them, what do you like about your job? And what do you not like about it? And I learned something very important, which is what I want to learn from everyone is, are you in the right role for yourself? And I encourage supervisors and managers to know your staff so well, because if you have a receptionist who is rude to the patients and they just want to get things done, because there are people that just, they know what to do. They want to get it done and go home, like you said, but they don't have customer service skills. They don't really have that. How are you today? What brings you in? And, do you have any questions? Like, you're just a people person and you like people. So maybe that person that likes to get things done and like wants to just boom, 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 go is really better as a prior authorization specialist, because they're going to talk to the insurance company the way they need to get it done. And so Susie back here. Yeah, go ahead.
We did that too, Jennifer. So I went into a practice not too long ago out in Texas. Shout out to my friend Kimberly in Texas. And hey, they had a huge problem with rejections for demographic information. So I went and sat down next to the front desk person who did all the data entry. We got to talking. We became friends. She said, "Christine, can I tell you something?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "I have dyslexia." and I'm having a hard time. Every time I put people in the system, it's coming back wrong, but I can't lose my job. I need my job, Christine. And I said, oh, no problem. And like you, Jennifer, we moved her over to prior auths. Wow. She did great. She didn't have to enter anything in. Everything was already there. She was communicating with the insurance companies, and we put somebody else in that front desk role, and our rejections stopped.
They went down like they should, right? When you have the right information in. And that's the thing too, is, they made us, it's a matter of, it's a real thing, guys. And we realize it all over the place, whatever state we live in. The country is in trouble because they don't have people that want to work sometimes, or they can't find the people that are experienced. So they hire someone off the street and they just train them. And that's fine. People need jobs. I'm not against it. But you have to make sure that you get them trained. And if they're not in the right,
the right information. You can't have someone training who is not trainable, one, and you can't train somebody who's not trained enough. So you got two deficiencies on both sides trying to train people, and it's the wrong way, and things are coming out deficient where you have a higher AR because they didn't tell them that after you post the claim payment, you're supposed to adjust off the difference so your AR doesn't skyrocket. So
my mama used to call that the blind leading the blind.
Come on, that's it.
We see it all the time, right?
Yes.
You need a good listener. You need someone who is going to take all the information in first, because what if they haven't told you the whole story? You already start typing and they're like, oh, wait, I need to ask this question. If you just listen to everything, then if you need to ask a question, you can ask it. But then we think, okay, like, do you know all the information you need for entering? Do you know all the pieces? Do you know what is necessary? If they are a child, do you know that you need the parents' information, for instance? Do you know which parent goes first in the order? Yeah. Do you know the birth date rule?
Paris just put a great comment up. Why do these companies think they don't have to train? So Paris, I'll tell you my own personal journey. So I had a billing company for 17 years. And what I learned during that time is that everybody learns things differently. And even if they've got experience and they're coming to your organization, their experience might be limited to what they learned in their prior role there. And so it is important. Jennifer, you were saying sometimes you have to ask the right questions. In the very beginning of the billing company, within the first couple of years, I would get so frustrated because they would call. This was back in the day when you had to call for outstanding AR. Now we didn't have Availity, and they would call and come to me and say, "Okay, well, I called the insurance company and they said the claim denied." Okay, why did the claim deny? I don't know. I hung up. Okay, well, we can't do that, honey. You got to ask the next question. And really, it came to a point where I saw that there was a huge need, because in their previous role, that was enough information. In my role, that was certainly not enough information. Right? So maybe maybe they don't know, Paris, that they need to invest more training. If the person came to them saying, I have all of this, I worked for Dr. So-and-so for 10 years. Maybe in Dr. So-and-so's office, they didn't care about denials, or they didn't post adjustments properly, or they had an outside billing company, right? Yeah. There's so many things that could.
Don't get me started down that road.
Limit that, right? So that would be
I'll tell you a story.
To Paris.
And I'll tell you a story, Paris. Happened to me recently, and it just woke me up. The other day, I posted on LinkedIn. It created a lot of comments. And a lot of the comments were really helpful and fired me up, and I'm still fired up about it. But I had someone post something on another social media platform that, okay, she is a CIC. If you know what that is, that's an inpatient coder, right? So they don't touch modifiers. They don't really know, because they don't need to, because PCS has the modifiers built into the code technically, right? Yeah. So they don't exist in PCS, right? So they were thrown into a professional fee role with no experience in pro fee and no experience in that specialty again. but just on the office visit. They only had to process the E&Ms and office procedures, right? Which is heavy with modifiers, right? So it is, especially ENT. Like that's one of my specialties. And I just like, you got 20. She asked what modifiers she needs to be aware of. And I was like, oh my goodness. So my head was spinning and just all of them. So I'm just like, I recommended to her, I said, I don't know your budget. I don't know if your employer pays for your education, but I sent her the link to my modifier boot camp. It's 3 hours of education. It covers all the modifiers I could even think of. Like I threw them all, most of them in there. And so it wasn't that expensive, but she was like, I'm going to see if my employer will pay for it. So she sent the email, told them how she's struggling, and she got it approved, right? She was honest with her employer. I need help. And she sent in the cost. And maybe they thought, oh, that's reasonable. She messaged me back and said, thank you so much. Your training was so helpful to me. And I just felt so good. I mean, I wish I could have given it to her for free. I almost going to, but but I know I can't give everything away for free. But I just felt so bad for her. I just really felt bad for her because I could feel the stress building up in her. Even I don't ever talk to her on the phone, just in her post, I could feel the stress in her post.
Well,
just
Jennifer,
like she's panicking.
You hit something on the head there. So what I do when I speak with my students, and I teach most nights during the week, and what I tell them is, you're the owner of your education. You're the owner of your knowledge.
Yes.
Please stop sitting around waiting for employers to pay for you to go to education, continuing education. Take pride in your knowledge. Take pride. Now, I read what John said, and I agree. Sometimes, I wish that employers would invest harder, invest more into their staff. But when in the absence of the employer, don't let your brain, your knowledge move away. Keep going to AAPC chapter meetings, go to AHIMA meetings, go online, attend the seminars that you're giving there at Healthcare Inspired. Reach out to consultants. Lots of us consultants have membership programs where we offer additional education as part of the membership.
I do.
And, I think it's important that we remind people that just because your employer isn't taking that opportunity to invest in you, that you should not be investing in yourself. That employer probably is not your forever employer. And you're going to need and you're going to use that knowledge to go on to greater things. So don't limit yourself.
Yeah. I also feel 100%. That,
Now I want to.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to go on to our next topic, but we'll introduce it. I did want to make sure, though, that we understand as a leader, like we talked about, you got to know your team. We talked about that. But I want to talk about building what we call a culture of compliance, because some people just don't know that what they're doing is non-compliant. They think it's okay. We've always done it this way. I did it this way for years, not a problem. But just because you didn't get caught doesn't mean what you're doing isn't right. So I had a doctor that I had as a new client, and he is new to the country-ish. And he thought just because you don't take Medicare that you can't get in trouble for unbundling. And I had to have a nice conversation about state laws. And the state of New York is very, very picky. They're very strict. You don't want to mess with New York. You don't want to mess with California. And you don't want to mess with Florida. East,
you don't
west,
want to mess with
south.
Texas.
And Texas. You never mess with Texas, ladies. Never mess with Texas. But anyway, you don't mess with anybody. Like, you should just know that, like, and that's what we exist, right? Us consultants exist for that. We don't want to tell them. We're not trying to like be the teacher that says you can't do that, you can't do that, stop chewing gum, whatever. Like you want to be the person that tells them why, what could happen. And this is ethical behavior. This is non-ethical behavior. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, as Jordan Johnson always says, and others as well. And you have responsibility to do things right. And so, for instance, we talked, Maya, about the fraud, waste, and abuse, and we talked about the laws that exist. And it clearly says if you knew or should have known, right?
Yeah.
So a law existed.
Deliberate ignorance or reckless disregard.
Yeah.
Those are burned into my head.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So you should have known because a policy existed. And I'm so glad that on the podcast that you attend weekly with Sean Weiss and Terry Fletcher and others, Christine, so glad that exists because y'all are saying stuff that we're all thinking. So I'm so glad that we have that platform to go to have these industry leaders that are just saying, this is what's right and wrong. If you're doing this, you're wrong because of this. And they're not just saying it because I say so. They're saying it because it's true and it's factual.
Right.
So I don't know your thoughts on that, but I mean, like, we can talk about that. We can talk about some
Believe
of these
me,
laws that exist.
The podcast that I'm on, there's never a lack of topics to discuss. I think that, well, you know, we're all compliance professionals. So you, Maya, Jennifer, we see these compliance issues that come up on a daily basis. And a lot of people, though, that are working in the industry, I've met some amazing people out there. And they don't know what they don't know because they have had such trust in their leadership. And I think that sometimes that leadership doesn't have the bandwidth to keep their fingers on the pulse. So hiring your consultants, your compliance consultants who do. Did anybody know the final rule dropped? The proposal
I was so
dropped.
excited. Yes,
right?
I was waiting. It's July. It's July. I'm like any day now.
Yeah.
And what would that mean yesterday. So what would that mean? I was even talking about it last night. I was like, any day now. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, yay. But a lot of people don't know that even exists or what it is or how it influences. And, you know, not that the payment poster or your denial management person necessarily needs to take the time to know that, but it does affect those roles. It affects all the roles. So bringing in your compliance consultants, we don't live in your practice. We are only there to make sure that you get that information that's pertinent for your practice, that you're doing things correctly, that you don't have to eventually get that horrible letter that says, pay us back money. When I see those letters, I think two things. No one's getting raises, and there's no Christmas bonus coming for them either. And that is sad, right? Practices should be able to provide that for their staff members.
So. Absolutely. Back in the day, we were full-time, we got $100 check every year. And if we were part-time, we got $50. And like, you know, I understand like back then it was like only so much they could do. And I preferred that over the gym bag as my gift for the year, but I really had the cash. But that went away because they
turkey. Yay! I got a turkey.
Turkey, right? Nowadays, I think the turkey's equivalent to the Stanley Cup, right? Oh, I got a Stanley Cup.
Right.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. But I want to talk about building that culture because everyone needs to know that everything they do affects compliance and affects the revenue. It affects their ability to exist in that role. It affects the ability to keep the lights on, you know, what they can do, what they can't do. So I think there's a lot to the compliance program, but the one thing that I think is missing is we don't talk a lot about the code of conduct. I did a whole episode on that, and I had to remind people of that being part of your compliance plan because the way that people talk to each other in an office, it's really upsetting to me. We're all human. We all bleed. We all have emotions, and we don't need to bring our agenda to work. We don't need to bring drama to the office. You might be having a bad day, and you might, you know, have had like spilled your coffee, you know, on you on the way to work, or you lost your keys and you were late. There's a lot of things that can happen when you're on the way to work, right? But do you have to take that out on little Susie over here who is just asking you a question about does this look correct to you? Well, of course it does. You know, you should know that. Like that kind of attitude, I'm just like, check that at the door. Because you're not any more important than me. Just because I'm asking you a question doesn't mean you have to give me an attitude. I may have known that 2 weeks ago, but maybe I just want to make sure that I'm still correct. Or, yeah, you told me 2 weeks ago, but I want to know if I'm right or if that's still the case. You know, it's just, I don't know. I just, I'm on my soapbox, so I need to get off of it. But I just, what are your thoughts on the code of conduct? I mean, what are you guys seeing out there that is really affecting the compliance culture?
Well, I will tell you, it's a whole new generation out there. And what
Oh,
I'm
yes.
seeing is there is not enough, if you see something, say something. There
Mm-hmm.
is too much of this is not my business. This is not, look, this is their practice. Or even maybe the old misconception that, well, the claim goes out with the doctor's name on it. So really it's not my fault if it's wrong. We're just throwing
Well,
modifiers on there to see what'll get paid.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
and I think we need to change that thought process. I tell people, listen, I know that you don't want to snitch or you don't want to
But stitches get
maybe
stitches,
say something and it shows that you should have known and you didn't. So maybe it's a poor reflection on you.
Yeah,
But when you show up to work and there's a padlock on the door, how does that affect you?
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
profound, right? And
Yeah.
um, so we have to make sure that if there's something going on, the culture of compliance, the code of ethics, the code of conduct, that is there to make sure that you feel comfortable and you're encouraged to say something. Should we be putting a modifier 25 on everything that goes out the door? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you don't know your job. It doesn't mean that you are deficient in any way.
Mm-mm.
It's, you're
No.
checking to see if you're doing it right.
And
That's
that's what y'all should
compliance.
be doing. Yes.
I think there's
Go
enough
ahead, Maya.
issues. I think there's enough issues about accountability in the office. There has to be a method and a culture of accountability. And if
Mm-hmm.
the physician doesn't take accountability, then how do you expect everyone in the office to take accountability when everybody is pointing the finger at each other and nobody's trying to resolve the issue? So the question is, if we're trying to create a culture that is representative of compliance, then it starts at the top and it works its way down. So if there is not enough conversations to show accountability, then we in turn create a culture of it's not my problem, that's that person's problem. But when you
Mm-hmm.
have collective conversations and meaningful conversations with people who are within the interchanging circles of revenue cycle,
Mhm.
from the time that they come to see the office all the way up to the top, then it becomes a collective effort and a conscious effort that people are involved in and they all want to participate because it's considered collaborative. That is what creates a culture, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you
Yes.
more, Maya. And I think that one of the areas that practices don't take advantage of is having that monthly staff meeting.
Oh,
Set
yes.
aside a 30-minute time period. You know what? Pick up some pizzas. Who doesn't love pizza? And
Coffee and
sit down,
donuts.
right? Coffee and donuts, whatever the case may be, that we sit down and we have a open forum meeting. Maybe we do bring a couple of topics. There's some changes this month we wanted to let you know about, but we
Mm-hmm.
primarily want to hear about what challenges you may have had this month. We played a game with our kids for many years. I have 5 kids and I survived 5 kids. I don't even know how. But we had 3 boys and 2 girls. And the problem with that was that the 3 boys, when they would come home from school every day, it was, how was your day? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. And that was the end of the conversation.
Oh, I
The
love it.
girls, on the other hand, how was your day? An hour later, I'm still hearing about how Leah wouldn't talk to Becky and I needed to find a way to like expand one and narrow the. So we started the high-low game. We played it throughout their entire life. We still play it at holidays or family dinners. Tell me what is the best thing that happened this week. Tell me what the most challenging thing was this week. And maybe if we encouraged our staff to come in on a monthly basis and say, what's your high this month or what's your low this month? At least we could get some
Mm-hmm.
conversation going on that was great. How do we expand upon it? Or that sucked. And here are some opportunities to make it better.
Right.
That culture in the office, that's when you're going to hear about, all my modifier 25s keep getting denied. And I just think that it's a problem. I don't know why we put it on every single claim because that's what my low was this month.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. And, somebody in the office might know, but are they too scared to speak up because maybe it was the office manager that told them to do it?
Right.
So you got that problem. But again, you need to not be afraid to stay compliant. And I know it's hard. I quit my job once over this. So it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to leave a job where you just can't ethically stay there. So you got to make those decisions for yourself as a human being, for your family, yes. But are you going to feel good inside as a person if you stay in a job where you know you're not happy and you know they're not doing things compliantly? Are you going to be happy inside? Are you going to go home and just feel worse? Right. Are you going to enjoy life?
Yeah.
Something to think about. So, but yeah, so we encourage y'all. We encourage you to stay up to date on this podcast. Has a lot of great insights. You know, it's free. We have Christine Hall's podcast. We have, of course, Sonal Patel and Betty Hovey have a great compliance papers. And they tell all the nitty gritty of all the scary stories out there. So compliance, and it's enlightening to hear what's going on and how we should not repeat those mistakes. So you can learn a lot from others that are making those mistakes so you don't make them yourself. And use your technology smart. We're going to have more episodes coming up. Again, like I mentioned, over the next few weeks, we're going to be giving you insights into the new book that's launching this fall on communication that we are going to announce. I'm so excited. So it drops pre-order August 30th. And then, of course, September 15th is the day you'll get to purchase it officially. And I want to encourage you again, this weekend is the Healthcare Inspired Bone and Joint Summit for 2024. And you can go to healthcareinspiredllc.com/events and you'll see that event on there. It has 16 to 18 CEUs. We have Dawn Self, Alicia Scott. We have Beth Sleeper. We have Maya Turner. We have Tonya Silva. We have Jessica Burke, myself. I'm missing somebody. Ruby Woodward. I miss Pam Vanderbilt. Like it's an all-star cast, guys. It's just going to be super fun. And you don't want to miss on Saturday, Dawn Self and Alicia Scott. We are going to be interviewing them on billing compliance, not coding compliance, billing compliance. Learn those tricks and tips on how to not break the law when you, for instance, have to submit records to an insurance company. Do they have the right to ask for certain things? Right. What are you allowed to do? What is a violation? When you're not getting paid, is it the insurance or is it your staff maybe that needs to be trained? So you learn, how to hold the insurance company accountable, but also stay compliant in your billing practices. So you're going to love it. I hope you can attend. Any parting words of wisdom, Christine, for those of us who love compliance?
Well, I just want to remind everybody, you are part of compliance. Compliance is not an office on the third floor or something foreign to you. Compliance begins with you. Ask questions, never stop asking questions, and never stop learning.
Yes. And Maya, I'm happy that you're my co-host every week. So thank you for coming back and putting up with me every week. We want to thank our co-host, Maya. And of course, reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We all have memberships and resources for you. We all collaborate together as well. So chances are if you get one, you might get the other. So so stay tuned for more information from these ladies. And have a great, happy Thursday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week.